Hey, we are live on a Wednesday for another episode of SnL. My name is Lane.
And I am Scott. Welcome to our show.
And today we're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts when it comes to buying a house. We put together a list of do's and don'ts. So let's kick things off with the do's, okay? So do number one, okay? Do familiarize yourself with the contract and terms. This is going to be really important. Have your local real estate professional send you a blank copy of the contract ahead of time. Have them explain it to you ahead of time. Have them go over the different terms, because when it comes to a multiple offer situation and you're competing, you're going to want to know exactly what goes into that contract and exactly what those terms mean, so that way you're better prepared.
Absolutely. Lane is right on, because education is power, knowledge is power, and you want to be the one that knows every ounce of that contract ahead of time. Before you're in the pinch and in the throes of the negotiation process, you and your trusted realtor will have gone over everything. So when they send you that offer to DocuSign and send off to the listing agent, you're 100% comfortable with everything and your energy is all in the right place.
Yeah, and if you have to submit an offer more than once while you're looking to purchase, each offer is going to be different. It's going to have a different price. It's going to have different terms within the contract, but you need to be confident in knowing what each term means and what could happen potentially during escrow if you waive the appraisal contingency, or if you do a 7-day investigations contingency. You need to know what these things mean ahead of time, so that way you're completely confident in knowing when you pull the trigger, I'm good to go on this home.
Yeah, and a little bit on the flip side of that, Lane, what I like to do for my clients is I like them to be 100% comfortable with all of what I call the boilerplate items that are going to apply for no matter what property you purchase. So we know there's going to be plug and plays with regards to escrow period, price, some other terms, but certain things like Lane mentioned, the inspection contingencies and whatnot, and also arbitration, mediation, some other terms and clauses are going to be standard for everything that you consider purchasing. So having a full understanding of that well ahead of the game is super, super important. And you and your agent, again, can talk about all this well behind the scenes before you get rolling.
All right, let's move on to do number two. Do number two, know your numbers, run the scenarios. And this is where you're going to have to really lean on your mortgage professional. That way, you know, it's not just the rate, and it's not just the purchase price. There's closing costs involved. There's HOA fees if you're looking into an HOA. There's different tax rates. So the overall monthly nut is important, and you need to know all these different little scenarios. If you put 5% down versus 20% down, if there's mortgage insurance versus not having mortgage insurance, you want to be confident going into it ahead of time, because when it gets to be a competitive marketplace like we're in, you need to make absolutely sure that when you're pulling the trigger on that offer, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Absolutely right on. And again, we're dealing with a buyer right now, and they're in the process of a multiple counteroffer. They wanted to know what the tax rate was ahead of time. And of course, that's real estate 101 for us, because the tax rate, what you pay on an annual basis, is going to change a little bit if the price gets bid up $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So understanding the tax rate, what your HOA dues are ahead of time, what they're going to cover. Again, this might be a little difficult from complex to complex to know everything, but just get a range of what those dues are going to be, so that you're comfortable knowing in the areas that you're looking, are my dues going to be between $400 and $600, and be prepared kind of for that higher number with regards to that. And then understanding the possibility of having Mello-Roos taxes, because that will also impact your tax rate. So as Lane says, just know all of those ancillary costs that go into things, in my opinion, in addition to what your mortgage interest and payment's going to be.
And sometimes people are on price points where they're just on the cusp of buying a single family detached residence without an HOA, or having to buy into an association. But just know, like, based on these rates, if it's a $400 a month HOA, it's equivalent to $80,000 in mortgage. So if you're looking at $600,000 home with $400 HOA, are you better off looking at $680 single family detached? If there's out there in Orange County, those are getting tough, but you know what I mean when I'm running these particular scenarios. So like, have all of these little scenarios run, so that way you know exactly what you want and which avenue you can go if you're looking at a place with an HOA or not.
Absolutely. And one last point on this too is understand the power of your down payment. Most people today are buying real estate with financing. So therefore you have a down payment and you're borrowing some money. It's a leveraged investment. So even though your price point may go up $50,000, if you're putting 10% down, that's another $5,000 out of pocket. So know those ratios and how those work. And you also may want to know, hey, if I'm flipping into a different category of loan, maybe I don't stick with my X percent down. Maybe I have to put more money on the table to get that loan where I want it to. But again, the key here is do it all in advance. Look at all of your scenarios versus the high point and a low point of where your budget might be at the end of the day. So you've got complete comfort when we get into that multiple offer situation, because you're going to get a counter offer and maybe you're going to think, uh-oh, this is different than what I was expecting. But if you've done your homework ahead of time, it won't be so much stress.
All right, let's move on to do number 3. Do number 3 is use a trusted realtor. Now, obviously that sounds like that might be an obvious statement, but believe it or not, there are buyers out there that are using family members or friends that might not be in real estate full time. And that's very difficult to do, especially when you're in a marketplace like we're in, where it's so competitive for buyers, because trusted realtors, they know the market. Trusted realtors, they know the area. They know exactly what it takes to get an offer accepted in a competitive market when it comes to being creative with the terms. But also, believe it or not, trusted realtors and known realtors, they want to work with other trusted and known realtors. You'll be surprised when we're in multiple offer situations and we know the listing agent on the other side, or have heard of the listing agent on the other side, and they've heard of us as well, where you just kind of have that confidence in accepting this buyer, knowing that there's a professional behind them. So it's really important to be able to lean on and use a trusted realtor.
Absolutely. I'm going to take that a step further, because Lane, also we want to make sure that you work with a trusted lender, because many times we'll meet a buyer and he or she will have a lender that they kind of sort of know, they're not sure. Well, I'll tell you what, all things are not considered equal with regards to not only the rate and terms, but who your lender is, the support team they have behind them for processing the loan. We have a transaction going right now where we just got acceptance yesterday, and it was in large part to the rapport the lender built with the listing agent. The listing agent had a comfort level with where our buyers were with regards to their financing. And let's face it, the only good escrow is a closed escrow, and it comes down to the financing. So I'm going to add to that trusted realtor and trusted lender. They both need to be part of a large community, know what they're doing, know how to communicate with others. And remember, every transaction has a seller, a buyer, 2 realtors, and a lender. So there are 5 parties to this transaction, and everybody needs to be trusted and be willing to communicate with each other. That's the absolute key to having success for both the buyer and the seller.
And if your real estate agent is the only one fighting on your behalf to get an offer accepted, that's not enough. You need a whole team behind you, and a team, like Scott's mentioning, it is part of the lender. The lender needs to be fighting on your behalf, calling the listing agent, expressing your qualifications and just assuring them that this is going to be an easy close, because that's going to build confidence on the listing and the seller side to get that offer accepted. So you can't just have one fighter in your corner. You need a whole team behind you. And these trusted and known realtors have built up over a long period of time, in Scott's case, more than 30 years, an incredible team to stand behind these buyers to help get their offers accepted.
And you know what? In closing this topic out, the reason we're pushing on this so much is we have to realize in many cases, we're putting an offer out there. The listing agent doesn't know who we are. The seller doesn't know who we are. Again, we may have a reputation, but they don't know who we are going in. So by using all of these skills up front, we can put the seller and their agent at ease at the very beginning, minimizing risk, minimizing uncertainty. When you're faced with multiple offers as a seller, put yourself in those shoes. What would you do? You're going to take the path of least resistance, where you say, you know what? These people know what they're doing. They've got their game together. And I feel there's much more, a much higher probability that they're going to meet the timeframes. They're going to do what they said they're going to do. We're going to remove contingencies and close on time, and I'm going to get my money in the bank. So it's always understanding what is the other side thinking and looking for, and it helps us craft our game accordingly.
All right, so those were the do's. Let's move on to the don'ts, or the do nots, if you will. So do not, number 1, do not let paint or minor repairs stop you from purchasing your dream home. Because guess what? If you have a wish list and everything about this house checks off every box on your wish list except for maybe the paint color, paint is one of the most inexpensive things that you can do. So do not let something like paint stop you from buying the home. You can change the colors, or you can change the flooring, but some of the things you can't change the area, the location, the lot. It's very difficult to change the size of the interior home unless you go through the proper permit. So if every box is checked except for maybe the paint colors or some minor repairs, don't let that stop you from purchasing that home.
And we think about this when we tell our sellers, studies show that the most important features that buyers look at is a feeling of freshness and newness and cleanliness. And that's always accomplished with floors, walls, and ceilings. And if you think about that, take all the furniture, everything else away, that makes up the greatest amount of the cubic footage of the home. And unfortunately, a lot of sellers don't take that approach. So as Lane mentioned at the beginning of this, understanding changing out those items is one of the easiest and least expensive things you can do overall, but yet you don't want it to turn you off from a property. So it's key that you don't let that stuff get in your way. And I want to reiterate again from day one, location, location, location. We've all heard of it. It's tried and true, but we can't reiterate enough. You can always upgrade or change a property, but you can't move it.
Okay, don't. Number 2, don't fixate on just the purchase price. I know we alluded to it a little bit earlier in the video, but there's more that goes to it than just the purchase price. There's different costs associated with buying a home, with closing costs. There's different fees when it comes to tax and insurance. Interest rates, they change over time. So if you get pre-qualified at a particular interest rate, that might change before you buy a house. Perfect example, we were like really close at being able to put an offer together for one of my buyers. We were within maybe $5,000. Now, with just a couple days ago, actually, the interest rates dipped a little bit, and that changed her qualifications. She was able to afford a little bit more, but because, like we talked about in the do's, because she knew all the numbers ahead of time, because she ran all of the scenarios, she knew that now, because the rates went down a little bit, she was able to go up $5,000 and get that dream home with her monthly payment being the exact same as where she wanted to be. So make sure you do the homework ahead of time, like we talked to earlier in the video, but also do not fixate on just purchase price, because more goes into it than just that.
Right on, Lane. Nothing else to add with regards to that. Again, just understanding there's a whole package involved, and you just want to understand everything. And we'll also make a quick note of that with some of your fix-up costs. Some properties may need a little more than others. So keep that budget in mind as well as you're looking at the entire package.
All right. Well, we'll have you take do not number 3. Do not number 3 coming on up.
Absolutely. Don't make big credit purchases, credit or credit card purchases before closing. This is one of the things the lenders drilled into my head back from day one when I had a client actually go out and buy a new car 3 days before closing. Well, guess what happens when you go out and buy a new car? They run your credit. Or guess what happens when you go to a big box store and they say, oh, sign up for our 0% financing for 3 years on that big screen TV. That's essentially a brand new credit card, and they're going to run your credit. The lesson here is don't make any big purchases once you go under contract, because you're going under contract. Your lender is setting you up for a loan based on the specific situation that you're in at that moment in time. You don't want to change that between when you go under contract and when you close the property.
Lenders also look at what's called a debt to income ratio. So if you do buy a car, or you do buy a big furniture item, or you do finance something, that's added debt to your quote unquote debt to income ratio. So that changes your qualifications as well. And that could put you in a position of not being able to close on that home. So whatever you do, if you know you're buying a home, no big purchases, no credit card pulls, do not use credit on anything, and you're going to be good to go.
Absolutely. I think we can't state that more clearly. That's a very, very easy one.
All right, what's the last do not?
Don't rush and be patient. Now, you know what? This is a double-edged sword right now, because it's hard for buyers when they, let's say, get beat out on an offer, and then a property in an inferior location comes up the next week for more money, and then it sells just as fast. And they're thinking, holy cow, what is happening here? You know, I'm going to get priced out of the marketplace. I'm not going to get what I want. The emotions just run crazy. But if we don't rush and we're patient, and again, going back to the beginning of our video, when you have a trusted realtor in your corner, you can map out a plan together. You can understand where you've been, where you're going, and what you need to do in the right now. There's always going to be the right house that's going to come up, as long as that agent is digging deeper, looking for homes that have been out there a long time, right for a price reduction, homes that have been canceled, digging around for homes that are not yet on the market. The right home will be out there, and we found, at least in our little world with our buyers, that if they know we're aggressively searching for them, and it's a collaborative effort, we're going to find the right house. And again, going back to the beginning of the video, but then they know they've got to pounce on it when it comes up.
Yeah, and I look at it like this. This is going to be one of the largest purchases you're going to make, if not the largest purchase. So make sure, like, again, like Scott said, in an appreciating market, it's hard not to feel like you're rushing a little bit. But you have to make sure you actually like the house too. You don't just want to buy a house to buy a house. If this is something you're going to be in for a long period of time, whether it's 5 years, 10 years or longer, my parents are still living in their 5-year plan home. So you never know how long you're really going to be there. So you want to make sure when you have your wants and your checklist for an ideal perfect home, that the home actually really does check off a lot or most of the boxes. So just don't rush into anything, be patient and find the right house.
That's absolutely right. And again, if you're starting to feel that stress or you're thinking that you're compromising or whatnot, make sure you talk to your realtor, share exactly what you're feeling, because oftentimes just a little bit of a tweak in the location, or perhaps maybe you realize after looking at something, you know what, I don't really need that formal dining room. And by taking something off the must-have list, you can open up a whole new arena of different homes to look at. So the thing there, I would say, don't rush, be patient, be flexible, and be communicative with your realtor.
Yep. And with all that being said, those were our do's and don'ts when it comes to buying a house. We love doing these videos every week. Do us a favor. If you found value, if you know somebody that's interested in possibly buying a home in the next 6 to 12 months, share this video with them, because these are tips and tricks that are going to make sure that they're in the best possible position to be a competitive buyer, to get an offer accepted in a competitive marketplace, and to succeed out there.
Absolutely. Hey, Lane, after listening to our back and forth, I'd say, at least for me, I think we're just a little bit passionate about what we do in trying to help our buyers find the right house at the right price at their terms.
If you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you probably shouldn't be doing it at all, honestly. Like, your life is too short. So find something you enjoy doing, find something you're passionate about and get behind it. And fortunately enough, Scott and I found that, and we're really happy to share our passion and share what it takes to succeed.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for watching today. And again, stay tuned for more. These shows are all about you. And as Lane says, let us know if there's a topic or something that really interests you. We want to create value every time we do an SnL.
Bye.